Hey, my name is Ivy and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you are returning. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to have so many new faces subscribed to the channel. I think a lot of you found me through my favorite / prettiest single shadows video, which is definitely one of the closest to my heart that I've filmed to date. And I'm glad that you're here because I do love to talk about eyeshadow. So you'll probably see a lot of that around these parts. And today, in fact, is another eyeshadow video. It's dedicated to one brand, and that brand is called Shroud Cosmetics. Now, if you are a beauty makeup enthusiast the way that I am, it's very possible that you've heard of the brand, but they are a smaller independent brand. So there's a good chance that many of you have not heard of them. And if you haven't, then I'm really glad to be able to introduce you to the brand. I have 3 of their eyeshadow palettes. I've had a really good time playing with all of these so far within the context of my collection. I have them right here. I'm going to talk you through them today. We're going to get into all 3, and you're going to see swatches of the palettes. You're going to see me do this eye look, and hopefully by the end of this you just have a really good understanding of the brand and I've gotten you jazzed about them. All that said, I love to have a good disclaimer at the beginning of my videos. I don't have any affiliation with the brand. I've never been sent anything in PR by the brand. Everything that you're seeing I've purchased with my own money. I've supported them out of my pocket, and these are just, of course, as always, open, honest reviews. So with that, let's get into all of these eyeshadow palettes. We are gonna go from oldest to newest. The very first palette that I got from the brand is the It's Freakin Bats palette. This was in collaboration with Batty Bean, aka Betty Jean, on Instagram. And if you're not familiar with Betty Jean, she is an incredible eyeshadow enthusiast, makeup artist, makeup lover. I love her channel. She's always able to give you the DL on the latest independent shadow releases, bigger brands, etc. And when she came out with this palette, I was super interested in it because the color story just really spoke to me. But I definitely held off for a while just because I wasn't familiar with the brand. I wasn't looking to pick up the palette at the time of release. But it has been so popular that they have restocked it over and over and over again, and with good reason. When I finally did pick it up, I was like, oh, yes, I love this. I love it so much. So the palette is currently available on their site as of now, as of the moment today that I'm looking at it. It does occasionally sell out, but they do, as I've said, kind of continue to restock it. Much like their other palettes, I think if there's enough, interest in them, they try to keep them in stock. So let's open her up. And this is the color story that we will be discussing. The shades are incredible together. Vibrant kind of blues, the like poppy yellows and like murky kind of garbage colors, you know what I mean? Like this, like they just work so well together. And then you have these like really ethereal, almost like pastel shimmers that just kind of bring it all together. It's a really, really versatile palette. They're really memorable shades. And I'm always like, oh yes, I know exactly where I can find that color. It's in my Batty Bean It's Freakin Bats palette. So all of the palettes have the same kind of packaging. They're all this, thicker cardboard packaging with that kind of satin matte finish on the front. They definitely hold up really well. This is super cute. Hello friends at the back. So one thing that I love about the Shroud palettes is they're completely reusable. All of the palettes are magnetic. You can take out the pans, you can rearrange them, you can put in your own shades. So these are really, really versatile outside of just the existing color story, which I love, so I've maintained, but you can absolutely play around with these on your own terms, which I know a lot of people, especially in our little community, really enjoy. The second palette is another collaboration with Betty Jean. This is from this past Halloween. This is the Batty Bean and Shroud Hallobean palette. So as you can see, we're still loving the bat vibes. And I love the little hello friends on the back. It's Betty's tagline in all of her videos. And this is very much a take on Halloween that you will see is very evident with some spice to it. There's some incredible sparkly shades in here. There's a couple, there's like one or two multi-chromes. There's just some really, really beautiful shimmers, and the mattes are fantastic as well. I myself am like totally drawn to this general color palette on a regular basis. So I actually reach for this well beyond Halloween, and I have found it to be really, really useful. And then their newest addition is the Moonfall palette. So this is a palette that was created based on some existing shades that the brand had come out with, and then they expanded the line, they added some new shades, and they decided to make a full palette, and the palette is stunning. I think they restocked it, but then I also think it's sold out again, so you'll have to check at the time of watching this video whether or not it's in stock right now. I'm not sure, but this is the Moonfall palette. Again, all have the same packaging, really sturdy, nice feeling cardboard packaging. I feel like it's really good for an indie brand. Like for me, the designs are really well done. There's a lot of thought that has gone into these. They just feel good to hold. I mean, it's stunning. It's such a beautiful collection. You know, and at first I looked at this and I felt like the color story didn't quite hang together for me, but as I've started playing with it more and more, it just feels like such a solid collection, and it really does work together. So that is Moonfall. So that's just a quick look at all three of the palettes. As far as their stock lists go, check the website, you know, at the time of watching this video to see what might be in stock. There's such a high level of consistency across all three of these palettes, but I've also noticed that from my first purchase to my most recent purchase, the quality of the shadows has only gotten better. I think that the mattes perform incredibly well, and in fact, the mattes are really something that's drawn me personally to the brand even more than the shimmers. They have a couple of all matte palettes that are their Creepy Cute collection, which I do not have currently, but they're just super beautiful, really pigmented. I think will show up well on a variety of skin tones, which is incredibly important. And it just seems like they've spent a lot of time formulating their mattes just as much as they have spent formulating their shimmers and their duochromes and their, you know, sexier shades. So for me, that means that I'm getting extremely good quality on the whole for a palette. Okay, we're gonna get into the swatches now. Then you're gonna get taken to some footage of me putting together this eye look, and then we'll come back at the end for some final thoughts. So we are going to start with It's Freakin Bats, which is the very first Shroud palette that I purchased. I absolutely fell in love with this color story. It is just so fun because it's very grungy at its core, but look at how bright and sort of happy it is. Like, it really is very vibrant. So the first shade is Handbook. Look at how beautiful. Really just like a gold green chartreuse lime. Has a lot more green in it than you might think. Like I think in certain lights it can read really yellow, but it's truly got this like green flip to it that is stunning. Next is Spooky. I mean, I'm laughing because it's just such a glorious color. Oh, of all the matte shades in all the world, you had to walk into mine. I love Spooky. I love this color. I love this color so much. There's a good reason why I ended up using a lot of it in my eye look. Next is Apparition. So this is like a lavender-based shade with a lot of gold reflect in it. It's really beautiful on the eyes. It has a lot of dimension and depth to it. It reminds me a little bit of Painted Lady by Looksy Beauty, which was in my Single Shadows video. It has a lot in common with it. It doesn't have the kind of like blue tinted sparkles to it. It's really straight gold and purple, but it is lovely on the eyes. Really, really like this color a lot. Next, we'll do Adams, which is this kind of forest green, really, really beautiful matte shade. I mean, you can see I'm not pressing very hard on these pans, and look at the pigment that I'm getting. But they also blend out really nicely on the eyes. Like, they're not difficult to blend, they don't drag, they're super smooth and just very pigmented. The next shade is Sam, and this is one of my favorite colors for an inner corner highlight. I mean, look at this green. It's basically like a sagey green, but the gold shimmer in it is so stunning and so powerful. Like it just really, really, really lights up a look. It's a really fun shade to play with, and I love that it's included in this palette. I know the next shade is one of the favorites of Betty Jean. It's called Trappa. And I remember her talking when this palette was released, she wanted this like mucky, murky, mustard, green, yellow, gold, and she nailed it. And it's a little darker on than it looks in the pan, but I like that. I like that it serves as a real like grounding shade when you use it on your eyes. Next shade is Zero. And this is another beautiful sort of purple shade, but it has this incredible blue flip to it that makes it super special. So you can see it, especially next to Apparition, how different they are. That blue flip makes it such an icy, gorgeous dream. I love it. Next we have Derry, which is so dark. This shade has, it has pigment for days. It can almost read black, but it's not. It's like a deep magenta brown. I love that it's not black. It's just such a cool shade. And then the last shade is called Grim. This one, honestly, I haven't played with, and I should, because you'll see how absolutely, I keep laughing just because these shades are unbelievable, how stunning that color is. It is this like beautiful azure, like turquoise sea blue. It is beautiful. And if you're into blues, just like look at this sea, really, really beautiful. So that's all of the swatches for It's Freakin Bats. Cannot recommend it enough. I think it is a stunning palette. So next we have Hallobean. This was a Halloween timed release for this past Halloween. So I think it was Halloween 2022. The brand did their second collaboration with Betty Jean, aka Batty Bean. And this color story definitely has more of a traditional Halloween take on it, but I feel like it's got a little bit of a twist to it. Like there are definitely shades in here that to me do not read like your average Halloween palette. So yes, like there's orange. I don't know. To me, it's way more interesting than your typical Halloween release. And in particular, I love that there's this shade Ghastly and this shade Wicked, which are both really dark pigmented mattes, but they are not black, which is great. I'm glad that there is no black in this palette. I'm gonna start with Ghastly. And again, it may read a little dark black on camera, but truly this is like a very, very deep eggplant purple. And I love the depth of this matte shade. Again, just really, really well done mattes. This next shade, Afterlife, it's like one of these metallic sheeny shades, which I love. It's got a lot of gloss to it. It's very smooth. It ends up looking very wet on the eyes. There's like a little bit of depth to it, but there's no true flip. Been really, really excited about how stunning it looks. So really excited about that shade. The next shade is Crypt, which reminds me a little bit of Trappa, but honestly it's lighter, it's more mustard, and I feel like this is one of those shades that everybody should have one of in their collection. Like this mustard shade is awesome. So that is Crypt, and it's really stunning. Love it. Look at how pretty this like little mini color story is. It's gorgeous. Next is Woodsboro. So this is another kind of sparkly metallic orange, but it's super bright. Like if you are looking for a hot, and I emphasize hot, orange, Woodsboro is lit. It's like if a pumpkin was on steroids. It's so pretty. Okay, next is It's Showtime, which is really beautiful, like kind of pea green. It's just really saturated. I love it. I actually did not have anything similar to this in my collection, despite having quite a few greens. It's so springy. Like if you were to pair this with some pastel blues, I mean, absolutely such a cool and unique shade. The next one I know a lot of people were drawn to when the palette came out, and it's Black Flame, blackened base multi-chrome shade. So it's gonna flip between green, red, purple, and orange. It's probably gonna be a little tough to capture on camera. Like I don't know if I'm gonna get all of the shifts. You can see some of them, but yeah, it has that dark black smoky base. And it definitely has, like, if you're not getting it there, you can kind of see it, like that green flip to it. Really, really, really cool shade. I think Black Flame is such a great name for it as well. Like it just fits super duper well. Okay, the next shade is called Losers Club. This is another matte, and it's kind of a warm orangey brown. So it's definitely reading more vibrant orange, but it's got like kind of brown grounding tones to it. I think it's really, really pretty. And then the next shade is called Ghoulish. This is that white-based, very iridescent, inner corner, highlighty typey shade. You could even use it as a straight up highlighter. And it's got that delicious green flip to it. Again, feel like this color story is just so like well considered. You know, they have something for every part of a look that you would need. And then the last shade is Wicked. I am obsessed with this color. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Just so deliciously dark. Again, not black, just a dark green. And that's the kind of thing that I care a lot about. Like the nuance there is so important. You know, they could have just put a black in and nobody would have batted an eye because it's a Halloween release, but they didn't. I love this palette. I love the color story. I think that it is unique and fun and interesting. And if you're into these kind of shades, they're done really, really well. Okay, we are at our last palette. This is the newest one to release. This is called Moonfall. And again, this was a palette release that followed some initial shades that were developed by the brand as singles, and then they built out the collection a little bit more to create this full palette of 9 pans. I like to sort of like look at these columns as individual color stories that work really well together. Same going across the rows. Like I like to look at them in sort of like mini quadrants, if you will. This is my favorite so far, Primordial, Devotion, and Sentinel as like a color trio. I think is so beautiful. Like these shades are they speak to me. I'm gonna start with Folklore, which is this kind of eggplanty purple. If you are into purple, again, the same beautiful, just like delicious matte formula that Shroud does really well is present in this palette in spades. The next shade is probably my favorite. This is Artifact, which is this stunning shimmery green. Of course, it speaks to me. It's green. Depending on the light, it has that, you know, almost brownish reddish base and that green to teal to gold flip, which I cannot get enough of. It's super juicy, such a beautiful shade, and I've had so much fun playing with it. The next shade is Primordial, and this is probably my favorite matte in the palette. I didn't have anything similar to it in my collection already. I find myself reaching for that one quite a bit. I love it. The next shade is Night Song. This is another shimmery metallic with a flip. This is a bright blue, but it has this very beautiful like purple undertone to it. It's another one of these like smooth metallics. It's just really, really shifty. The next shade is called Rebirth, and this is a dark navy, another stunning matte. Again, really, really deep. You know, it just pairs super well within the palette so that you can get really, really dark. The next shade is called Devotion. This is the same kind of formula as Night Song, a little bit flaky, and it is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful purple with a greenish gold and silver kind of flip to it. This is just, you know, again, like purple on steroids with a brightness hit to it. Can't go wrong with that. The next shade is Moon Moss. This is such a me color. This is like an olivey martini green. It's deeper and darker and murkier than the green that's in the Hallobean palette. Absolutely a gorgeous like murky green. Really, really like that. And the next shade is Soulstone. This is a shade that I didn't know how I would feel about it because I'm not a big pink red person, but I mean, look at that. It is a sexy color. Like it has this like kind of hint of orange to it, depending on the way you look at it. It can go as dark as like purple too, so it kind of picks up on the purples in the palette, but it's super bright and sexy, and it just has like this luminescence to it that I love. And then the last shade is Sentinel, which is a beautiful teal green, but on the darker side, again, kind of playing within that Moonfall theme. Just think that the whole palette hangs together even better than I expected. You know, it reads really fun. So that is Moonfall. Now that we've done some swatches, let's get into actually using these in a look. So I really do want to feature the mattes in this look, maybe even more than the shimmers. And it's not to give the shimmers any sort of like boot, because you guys know I love shimmer, but the mattes are just, they're juicy. I am going to use Spooky, which is that beautiful periwinkle blue, and I'm going to use Crypt from the Batty Bean Hallobean collab. That's this shade here. It's much more of this like mustard, murky yellow. And then I want to bring this amazing shade Primordial as a red accent under my eyes. And then we'll figure out where maybe to add a touch of shimmer. This is going to be more of a color exploratory. Okay, so here is the finished look. I'm gonna zoom you in a little bit so I always do that, right? So you can really see the details in the eyes. I really, really like how this look came together. Well, I should say it's a lot of color for what I would typically do. I would usually focus more on just like 2 colors. Of course, when I was combining all 3 of these palettes together, it just felt really natural to want to like gravitate towards a lot of different colors. I really like how it's still kind of playing in that primary colors look and feel, but in slightly nuanced and toned ways. I did, of course, on the inner corner add a smidge of green because I can't help myself. I just did. But I love how it ultimately came together. I know that when you get a fresh, fancy new palette, you know, you're more likely going to be gravitating towards those gorgeous shimmers, really beautiful metallics and multi-chromes and duochromes and all the fancy chromes. But matte shadows, when they're done right, can be so beautiful. And I think that Shroud is just one of these smaller brands that is nailing that formula. And they're starting to pair it with some really, really beautiful shimmers as well that are kind of show-stopping. So really the whole package. I'm gonna end on a particular note that I think is of importance. As jazzed up as I clearly am about these eyeshadow palettes and about this brand, and I'm very happy to have them in my collection, and I do feel that they're each unique, I want to encourage you, if you're thinking about making a new purchase and you're a beauty enthusiast, maybe you're an eyeshadow enthusiast like I am, take a minute, take a breath, look in your collection first. Try to dupe out the palette that you're interested in before you buy it. Nobody needs any of this stuff. And it's totally fine to want it. It's totally fine to even buy it if you decide that it's in your budget and in your means and it's filling a place in your collection that's missing something. But you don't need it. Nobody needs any of this stuff. So I know how easy it is to get excited, and I'm not trying to dampen that excitement, but just remember, you've probably got a lot of makeup already, and you may even have a lot of these shades at your fingertips without realizing it. As sexy and amazing as a new eyeshadow palette is, especially for someone like me, I fall prey to that all the time. Take a deep breath, look in your collection first, and then decide if it's still going to fulfill a need for you. I hope that you enjoyed learning about Shroud, whether or not you're familiar with them or they're new to you. I think they're an amazing small brand that is worth checking out. They do very minimal releases, and kind of that's how I like it. There's just so much thought and creativity that gets put into each release that they do. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I really enjoyed filming it. I love the opportunity to showcase a smaller brand that some of you may or may not be familiar with. If you do check them out, I'm sure you will love them. And if you don't, I'm sure that you'll be inspired by what they're doing anyway. There's a way to have fun with both sides of it. And with that, I want to say thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up before you leave it. Subscribe if you have a chance, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye.